Hello, friends. I have another exciting game to share with you guys today. This is a game that I actually played over a month ago, but I remember it because I played not only one brilliant move, but actually two brilliant moves. So let's get into it. This was a 5-minute Roy Lopez game, and I've actually struggled a lot against Roy Lopez in the past. I would play moves like the Berlin that I've tried, but I think my biggest problem was playing bishop to c5 because that allows moves like c3 and then d4 with tempo on the bishop. So that's pretty good for white, not so good for black. So my friend actually showed me this line. I play a6, bishop back, now knight f6, castles, and bishop e7. So if white were to go for this and try to win this pawn, and I take this pawn, then rook or queen here are not as dangerous because the knight is not pinned to my king, and the bishop is kind of blocking the file a little bit. So they go here to defend the pawn. b5 now, blocking the bishop from taking the knight, kicking the bishop back, and I simply castle here, and white plays d3. So the line that my friend showed me is pretty aggressive, d5. It's actually a gambit. And I play this against somewhat passive moves. I played in the past against a3 as well as c3, and it seems to be okay. But basically, after e takes d5, this opens up the rook to attack e5. So knight takes back, and white goes for this extra pawn. Knight takes, rook takes now, hitting the knight for the second time. So c6, defending the knight. And yes, white is up a pawn, and this rook is very aggressive and looks active, but it's also susceptible to attacks from my pieces. So they bring the knight out to try to trade on d5, and bishop d6 really just activates the aggressive position that I have here. So the rook is hit and defends itself, goes all the way back, but now the bishop is looking at h2. So instead of defending this knight on d5, I bring the queen out, attacking h2, and white plays the pretty obvious g3, attacking the queen, blocking the bishop. And yeah, the queen has to move, and it looks like I'm probably losing a pawn here. If I wanted to be defensive, the best move to defend the pawn would be queen here, which just isn't really that good. Bishop here comes with tempo, and it's just really annoying. So instead, I go in for these light square weaknesses. So typically after g3, you would want a bishop on g2 to cover the light squares. But white has played a Roy Lopez, so the bishop is all the way on the other side of the board. But they're going to try to reroute this bishop. If they take this pawn after I retake, then the bishop is not only hitting my rook, and on the longest diagonal of the board, the bishop can also come back in aid of the king here. So I actually don't want to take back. I play the more aggressive bishop g4, a counter punch hitting their queen. But I did just lose a knight, so white is actually going to try to hold on to this material by playing the move f3. So if I save the bishop, then they will save their knight, and I'm simply down a piece here. Instead, I play the first brilliant move, bishop takes g3, threatening mate in 2. However, the bishop was guarding e7, so white plays knight e7 check first, saving their knight, and now both my bishops are hanging. I'm already down a piece. So after my only legal move, king to the corner here, white takes back the bishop. So probably better was to defend along the second rank with the queen, but they take the bishop, and now I'm down 2 whole pieces, but I have an attack. So queen takes, with check. If the king goes to the corner, bishop takes with a fork. So they would lose their queen there. They don't want to do that. They would rather lose their king. They go here, bishop check, only legal move, queen check, only legal move. And now I play rook here, attacking the king. Also, just to note, king here was by far the better choice, but it's just a really fun game, basically, of cat and mouse, just chasing this king all over the board. So here to defend the knight, the king goes to d4, opening the rook up, also unpinning the knight from the king. I go pawn check, king takes, queen check, bishop block with tempo, And now the second brilliant move from black, it's a little less obvious, a little more subtle. Queen to h4. This just simply cuts the king off from his half the board and keeps him locked in to my territory. So this also attacks the knight. This king really is exposed and basically naked here in front of all of his pieces. He tries to shelter his king a little bit, put some clothes on with knight c6. I simply pin the knight a second time. The king gets out of that pin again, but I pin him for the third time. And now bishop here to defend the knight, bishop here to attack the knight a third time. This knight cannot be defended anymore, so white tries to go for the counter play with the activity, bishop here, and now I could do something like rook takes, queen takes, or rook takes, queen takes, something like that, but I decide to leave the queen on, maintaining the pressure, attacking the bishop, and they trade rooks, which makes sense. And now they play c4, trying to defend the bishop. Their best bet here would have been to continue with the counterplay, looking for checkmate here, and white's probably a little bit better there. Again, they are up 2 pieces, so even if I get a piece back, I'm still down a piece, and they're holding on, if not better. But luckily for me, they make this mistake, and now I take the piece back, and I have a lot of counterplay here. King here, pawn takes, threatening mate. Pawn takes back, defending the mate. So queen takes that pawn, once again, threatening mate, also attacking the bishop. So they go queen here, defending mate and defending the bishop. And here, really, I could have closed the game out a lot faster, but it's important to note we're both at 15 seconds, so the quality of the moves here aren't going to be great. But to show you the line, queen d5 is best. And if the king goes up, then the rook skewers the king and queen. And after the king takes back the rook, then we can take the bishop with check. So the king will not go up. If the king goes down, then we actually have rook b8. If king takes pawn here, we have queen to b7, and this will be mate very soon. If the king goes to c7, then we have queen d8 check, followed by rook c8. This will probably lead to mate, but also queen e8 just skewers the king and queen. That simply would win the game as well. And if the king goes here, well, that's simply mate. And yeah, it's not good for white here. Unfortunately, I didn't find that, and I had to resort to just trading down, and I ended up flagging him in this game. I had less than a second left, so a little lucky, but a really fun and exciting game nonetheless. If you want to see the rest of the game, I'll link the description. I'll link it in the description below. But yeah, that's it for me. I haven't posted a video in a while, so hopefully I'll try to be more active here. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. And if you made it this far, especially, I appreciate it. So yeah, have a great rest of your day and take care of yourselves. I'll see you guys next time.